Story time again. So today is the 27th, and yesterday I was able to finally start working again. It feels good to be at work. Now, the story's not about work, it's about after work. Now, my routine is work, whatever appointments that I have in between, video games and food, and the cycle repeats. So, I get off work yesterday, and so here's how it went. I'll do it play by play. All right, so I get off of work. I'm walking, saving gas, whatever. And I look to see if my neighbors are in a garage doing Hank Hill stuff. So no one was doing Hank Hill stuff. And then I keep walking. And then you see... Okay, let me get closer. So in that parking spot right there, there was some Ford Focus, but I was standing over here. Now, these two vehicles weren't there. So, I'm just over here minding my business. And when I see that the garage door is closed, I assume that my neighbors were doing their own thing. But they weren't doing their own thing. They were helping out another neighbor trying to get his car door open because his battery is dead. He can't lock or unlock his vehicle. Finally noticed me. They're waving me over. They're like, hey, why won't you just help us out? So I'm like, jokingly like, oh, you want me to help you out because I'm black and black people break into cars and shit? They had like a Slim Jim and a whole entire nine, and they just couldn't seem to get the door open. So they had a coat hanger. Now the guy that they're helping is is an older Spanish guy. I mean, obviously Mexican, but he was an older Spanish guy. So I asked him, I was like, hey, does your doors work where if you're on the inside and you pull the handle, it unlocks from the inside? And he was like, yes. And I was like, okay, so this makes it easy. So you have, there's three types of people. One that thinks, one that does, and one that does and also advises and, is also a thinker too. So I'm thinking like, okay, how are we going to do this? They have a Slim Jim. They have a coat hanger. They have like this little like door wedge, and they have a knife. Now, this one kid who's constantly a drunk, he's the doer. So he's not like thinking on, how to go about this. He's like, headstrong, forces his way in. If it works, it works. So I noticed on the the coat hanger that they had a little hook to it. So I'm thinking like, okay, well, if we could somehow get this little makeshift hook on that door handle, we could take that hook and unlatch the door so we could open it. Now, for what it's worth, I have a weak shoulder. So keep that in mind. Now, these guys, I don't know how long they've been at this trying to get the door open, but I'm assuming that they've been, going at this door for at least an hour and a half before I got there. So I'm like, okay, well, the original metal coat hanger that they have, could get there, but we're going to need to extend it because it's not reaching all the way to the door handle. So I went inside, got my door handle, got my coat hanger, and I wrapped it around their coat hanger, and I was able to extend it. So with the wedge, I'm like, I put the wedge into the door handle, into the door, and you have to pretty much pry the door open a little bit more, so you could angle the coat hanger in a little further. So I'm telling this kid like, hey, while you're blocking the glare of the sun, because the sun is beaming on the window and it's reflecting, so you kind of need to block the sun so I can see what I'm doing. While you're blocking the sun, all I need you to do is to push that wedge so the door could stay pried open. And he's like, oh, just put a hammer in it, like low IQ thinking. Now, mind you, this kid, his routine is waking up, getting drunk, and going to bed, waking back up and getting drunk again, and it's like rinse, wash, and repeat. So speaking logic to this kid is like kind of non-existent. Not only can you speak logic to this kid, but he also, and he admits that he has a tendency to not want to listen to people because of opposition disorder or something like that, whatever. And that's cool. But there's been multiple times where I was able to get the coat hanger onto the door latch, and I'm like pulling on it. I'm pulling on it, but my left shoulder is weak, so I couldn't use too much force as I wanted to open the door handle on the inside. So fast forwarding another 10 minutes, all three of them, all two of them helped me out. As soon as I got the coat hanger onto the door latch, the other two helped me out. They was like, okay, well, he just needs more force. So they all helped out. So Poppy, he comes back and he's like, okay, so, who's the mastermind behind all this? And they pointed to me. They was like, yeah, I was a mastermind. I wasn't trying to take credit, but, like, I want to safely say if I wasn't there to orchestrate the whole entire thing, the door would have never gotten open. So when we finally got the door open, we tried to jumpstart the battery. Didn't work. So, Poppy was like, "All right, well, let me get some tools to take off the battery." So ironically, I have a whole bunch of tools in the trunk of my car. So the other neighbor, who was more of a help than the knuckleheaded young kid, the knuckleheaded drunk, I should say. He's not a bad person. He's really not. He's just drunk all the time. That's it. But anyways, the other guy went upstairs to get his tools, but since my tools were closer, I was like, well, let me just get my tools and, help Poppy out and, take away, get his battery outside the car. So after everything was said and done, I went my own way and, went to smoke my cigarette. And then he asked who was a mastermind. And I was like, the other guy pointed at me and was like, yeah, he was a mastermind. So he pulled out $40 and said, do what you want, go get drunk if you want. So he made sure that they gave me the $40. Now, the knuckleheaded kid, he gets a hard on, was like, oh yeah, let's get drunk. He's like, yeah, that's what he said. He said, we got to go get drunk. And, and I told him, I was like, he said, get drunk or something. We don't have to get drunk, like you're behind on rent and all that stuff. And you're having your parents and your grandmother, bail you out every single time. And your focus is getting drunk. That's really not a good look. So, we're all sitting in my other friend's garage, just, talking about the situation. And he's like, oh, I buy you drinks all the time. And I'm like, bro, when you buy drinks that you want to drink, not what I want to drink. That's not buying someone a drink. Buying someone a drink is having them choose what drink they want. If you go to a bar and you offer someone a drink, naturally they drink something of their own choosing. So naturally they drink something of their own choosing. And he's like, yeah, well, still a principle. I'm like, okay, well, that's how you feel. I mean, like, I'm not denying that you didn't buy me drinks, but you didn't buy me drinks that I want. So after he kept moping and complaining, I was like, okay, well, I was like, all right, you want a drink? You want a beer? Let's go get a beer. So now that I finally gave in, and fed into his alcoholism, he was like, no, never mind. I was like, bro, like for the past 20 minutes, you were moping and complaining about the guy who gave me the money to buy you a beer. And I told him, I was like, the way you think about things doesn't make sense. Like every time when you call me up and you want to hang out, you're asking me to give you a ride across the street. Not down the road, not a 5-minute walk or a 5-minute drive, but literally across the street. By me turning on my vehicle, it's like that spends like at least an eighth of a tank right there alone. And then I'm keeping the car running, whether I'm keeping the car running or not, that's more money that's going down the drain just for me giving you a ride across the street. And he doesn't get that logic. Like he's so used to, he's 25, so he's used to, having his way, being, sheltered and, white people shit. You know what I mean? Oh my God. But when you have that privilege to, because where I lived in Bridgeport, there's literally 3 corner stores on one street. You'll never catch my mom, you'll never catch anyone that I know taking their vehicle just to drive 300 feet just to go to the store and buy a Lucy or a beer or anything they need from the corner store. You know what I mean? So, where I come from, we don't have money like that. It's a dog eat dog world. So, but anyways, the moral of the story is that, I want to say most of the work and half the time that they spent just to get his car door open. It's a sad scenario. Like you kind of need to be there to see it, kind of thing, but it is what it is. But I want to safely say, I'm just going to like keep my distance from them. Like, I keep saying that, but I think, this time, like, I really would have to, unfortunately.